Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse. Husker Nation brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just science, but if you're like me, and you were kind of anticipating maybe an announcement at the press conference or at some point up until now that we'd try something new play calling wise on offense, and that's clearly not going to happen, and you're a little frustrated by that, then smash the like button all right, if you feel like there's at least some hope that our offense can make some progress the rest of the year, now that Dana Holgorsen, former Houston head coach, West Virginia head coach, a guy who's had a lot of success coaching quarterbacks, being an OC, being a head coach offensively, is here to help the Huskers as an offensive analyst, then smash that like button as well. As always, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now, this was supposed to be our interview with former Nebraska defensive coordinator, multi-time national champion Charlie McBride. That's going to have to be pushed off to our next show, which is right now planned to be Sunday night or sometime next week. Okay? Hopefully Coach gets to feeling better so we can do that. That is obviously the priority. But hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet, and or ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content we're putting out here on the Carriker Chronicles. I've also reached out for some other very interesting interviews in the meantime as well. But initially, it appears Marcus Satterfield is going to keep calling the plays. This is frustrating to me. We kind of know who he is. And this is with all due respect. None of this is ever personal. It's about winning football games and representing the great state of Nebraska in the best way possible. We kind of know who he is. You go back to 2013 with Temple, 88 points per game. 88th in the country. 88 points per game would be a record. 88th in the country in points per game, 75th in yards per game, 90th in the country in turnovers per game. His offenses tend to have a lot of turnovers for whatever reason. Temple, 2014, 100th in points per game, 120th in yards per game, 123rd in turnovers per game. Now, I will admit, there's going to be a little bit of crossover here between what I say on this show and what I've said recently on my Adam Carriker show, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. Tune into 93.7 The Ticket to check it out. But the reason for that is if something sticks out to me a little bit more, then I find it worth repeating sometimes. All right. At Temple 2015, 61st in the country, points per game, 96th in yards per game. We still haven't even broke the top 50th percentile when it comes to these things. At USC, South Carolina, not the Trojans, 2021, 106th points per game, 110th yards per game, 109th in turnovers per game. The next season at USC, the Carolina Gamecocks, 40th in points per game. There, we broke the top 40. 72nd in yards per game, 123rd in turnovers per game. Last year at Nebraska, 120th in points per game, 112th yards per game, basically almost dead last in the country in turnovers per game. This year at Nebraska, 106th in points per game. You have to bear with me, got a little bit of a cough. Hence the freaking jug of water. 106 in points per game so far this year, 93rd yards per game, 56th in turnovers per game. All right, so we kind of have an idea. We kind of know who Marcus Satterfield is. Those stats don't jump off the paper to me. There's a reason South Carolina fans, I think, were, maybe celebrating when they knew he was no longer going to be there. And again, nothing but all due respect, but we need better results on the offensive side of the ball. Did you know Nebraska has yet to win a game since Matt Rhule got here where the defense gives up more than 14 points? That's crazy to me. All right. I was sent this question. Is Rhule a bust? I'm going to respond simply because I've had a few people talk about this or that with Rhule. Just nothing too crazy. The answer is no. The answer is no. I'm just going to leave it at that. All right. There is reason for freshman optimism, though. That's literally what I have written down there is freshman optimism because we have a lot of young, talented freshmen. This isn't all doom and gloom, ladies and gentlemen. There's reason for hope. There's reason for optimism. There's reason for frickin' frustration. Look at our freshmen, though. Before Saturday, all right, before the UCLA game, I haven't updated these stats yet. All right, Dylan Rhule had played more football this year as a true freshman quarterback than any other true freshman in the country. He led all true freshman quarterbacks in completion percentage and touchdowns. All right, now, he hasn't thrown a touchdown in over a month, and I may have to double check this, but excuse me again, I believe he's had 5 INTs during that same time frame as well. But Vincent Shavers, he's still got amazing upside. Vincent Shavers is the top graded true freshman linebacker in the country going into last Saturday's game. Ja'Cory Barney's just freaking going off. The future's bright for that guy. Carter Nelson, he's just going to get better. How many True freshman tight ends get brought in and moved to wide receiver because their playmaking ability is that good. All right, hopefully the blocking comes along as well. Malachi Coleman, who could play yet this year, is technically still a freshman because he's redshirting. So next year he'll be a sophomore along with all these other guys as well. All right. Some of these other things aren't so exciting. Games decided by single digits at Nebraska. Bo Pelini was 20-11. Bill Callahan 10-7. Mike Riley 7-10. Scott Frost 5-22. Matt Rhule 2-8. All right, somebody sent me a message. Kurt Cignetti has won as many games in 10 games as Matt Rhule at Indiana as Matt Rhule has won in 21 games at Nebraska. That was almost correct. Indiana's 9-0. Matt Rhule's 10-11. So almost correct. Still crazy. And then they wrote Indiana was probably the worst Power 4 job. And look what's going on there. All right, this is via Jake Sorensen at the ticket. Bo Pelini's record in November at Nebraska was 20-8. Every coach since him in November is 9-26. Again, we haven't won a game in November in 2 years. We're 0-5 in the month of November the past couple of years. And it's tough for me when Rhule talked in his press conference Monday about bringing in outside help. My initial reaction was, all right, there's not an ego. He's willing to do whatever to try to figure out how to fix this. But then I was like, we got an offensive coordinator who's tied for 8th in the country as far as highest offensive coordinators in America at $1.4 million. All right. And then we have 11 coaches, all right, getting paid $16 million collectively, and 14 other analysts, quality control staff, and grad assistants. I'm not quite sure why we need the outside help, although I do appreciate it. I'm glad that Dana Holgorsen is here and he's going to be helping. He landed in Lincoln on Monday. I mean, Matt Rhule signed an 8-year, $74 million contract, okay, to become the 31st head coach here at the University of Nebraska. And here's the crazy thing. We have 3 guys on this staff, Rhule, Satterfield, Glenn Thomas, who've all been offensive coordinators and all been quarterbacks coach. All 3 of them. And we can't figure it out. Now we have, with Holgorsen here, 4 guys who've been offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, coaches, and 2 of those guys have been head coaches with Holgorsen and Rhule. So to me, it's just a little bit frustrating. You look at Matt Rhule, he's the 20th highest paid coach in the country. Right ahead of him is Dan Lanning and Kirk Ferentz at Iowa and Oregon. They're tied for 18th. And we consistently have top 20 recruiting classes every year. So to me, there's no excuse not to be top 20 sooner rather than later. Let's start by getting to a freaking bowl game just to make that clear. Don't start sending me a bunch of stuff about putting the cart before the horse. We got to get bowl eligible first, and I recognize that. I think one thing that does concern me a little bit, and we're going to play an 11-second clip from Matt Rhule's press conference on Monday. He seemed to be without his normal answers and his normal presence and confidence during the press conference on Monday. And here's an 11-second clip that kind of surprised me. Go ahead and roll that footage.
From your perspective, what do you feel like is not working with the offense?
It's a great question.
I don't know. That reminded me of Satterfield's press conference from a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure why we're so befuddled and don't have answers and unwilling to try something new. When I'll get into that in just a minute. Tom Chattel, all right, and I quote, "Maddening is the word to describe NU offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. Twice he was given a road map to get back in the game on Saturday and took his own detour," end quote. Now, Matt Rhule said, "Everybody needs to feel this." Rhule said, "Everybody needs to feel what I'm feeling," end quote. Everybody feels it. Trust me. All right, Nebraska coach Matt Rhule says, "And you can't run the ball to control the game. It can't protect on blitzes very well." That starts up front with the offensive line. 5th most experienced offensive line in the country. They've got size. We're big. The only assistant coach who's been here for 3 years. That's why I started using the word expectations instead of potential in the preseason. That starts up front with the offensive line. Rhule said, and I quote, just in general, and I quote, "I thought we'd be playing better on offense than we are." Again, just kind of this whole don't have a whole lot of answers, and it's frustrating when this is what you do, what you've done, when it's what you're getting paid to do. And I've never seen him stand at a podium and not be better equipped with answers or speak better words. I mean, I don't know how to put it. So that's a little concerning to me. But he said he's going to spend the bye week okay, introspectively evaluating the team, seeing what needs to be done going forward. So there is that. All right. Now, USC, they're 4-5. Not to look too far ahead, but they're 4-5. And they have an identity problem. And they've lost a lot of close games. Maryland, Minnesota, all right. But here's the deal. They're going to be starting a different quarterback too. Miller Moss will not be starting for them. All right, Lincoln Riley is making a change of quarterback for the Trojans. Quarterback Jaden Maivea will start versus Nebraska November 16th. Maivea transferred from UNLV. He had a 64% completion percentage, threw for 3,085 yards and 17 touchdowns last year for the Running Rebels. All right, next up. And this was sent to me from multiple people. I have never seen Coach Rhule lose his confidence until today's press conference. He seemed to be really stressed out, and he showed no determination or confidence. There's determination. Okay. He just seemed kind of down. And everybody has bad days. Everybody has bad days. It's just rough when everybody's watching what you're doing, but this is part of the gig as well. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen. Another swig. We're all pushing through stuff. All right. Now, Pete Thamel. All right. Right there. I'll read this. Sources, Nebraska is adding former Houston and West Virginia head coach Dana Holgorsen to the staff as an offensive consultant. He'll work with the offensive staff in a role that will evolve as the season goes on. That part was very interesting to me as well. He's worked over the years with a slew of top quarterbacks as a coach and coordinator: Graham Harrell, Case Keenum, Brandon Whedon, Geno Smith, Will Greer. All right. He was at Tennessee as a defensive consultant. TCU as a defensive consultant. Basically, he was watching their defense and letting the defensive coaches know how he would attack their defense as an offensive guy. Now he's here in Lincoln. The guys I just listed, those are like first-round picks, NFL quarterbacks, record-setting quarterbacks at the collegiate level. All right, Heisman finalists as well. All right, let's see what we got. Also, Phil Snow is in town as a fresh set of eyes on what the Huskers are doing on offense and defense as well. Snow was Rhule's DC for many years at Temple, Baylor, and Carolina. And as I mentioned, Holgorsen is a former West Virginia and Houston head coach. Yeah, I know a lot of people, quite a few places. I know people at Carolina. And it's interesting, I can't quite figure out why this is such a hard thing for Rhule to do. Because when it comes to just giving Glenn Thomas a chance, there must be something we don't know about Glenn Thomas. I don't know. I don't know what else. Nothing else makes sense unless maybe Rhule's just too close to some of these coaches. I don't know. Because we know what Satterfield is. We know what's on the line the rest of the year as an offensive play caller when it comes to Satterfield. We know what's on the line for the rest of the year. You don't have to switch anybody the positions they're coaching. You don't have to fire anybody. You literally don't have to do anything. Just say, all right, Satterfield, you keep coaching the tight ends. Glenn, you still got the quarterbacks. Glenn, you're just going to call the plays now. Or at least try it for the bye week and at USC. That's kind of what frustrates me the most, is it seems like the obvious thing to do. It seems like the simplest thing to do. I don't know. All right. That's what frustrates me the most. But let's give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. They are your local concrete and retaining wall experts. You can check them out at dpsconstruction.net. As I've alluded to several times on the show in the past, I know Jason Armstrong, the owner. He's a good dude, good human being in Nebraska and at heart. Yankees fan, sorry about the World Series, my friend. But all right, if you want someone to come in and do a great job, or this is the type of work you do and you want to work for somebody, all right, and do a great job for them, it's Jason Armstrong. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, Allen Capital Group. Check them out at their website, allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com. They do my family's finances. They have for over a decade. It puts our mind at ease. They have offices in Omaha, Grand Island, Ogallala. All right. They are Allen Capital Group. Allen Capital Group, next level solutions for next level needs. Check them out at allencapgroup.com and tell them that Adam sent you. Didn't we bring in a tackling consultant a few years ago? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't even remember. I didn't even feel like looking it up. I just wrote tackling consultant ? On my notes. And I remember thinking then, we don't know how to coach tackling. This is obviously different. I don't know why that popped in my head. All right. Now, to be clear, our next two, it's not all doom and gloom, ladies and gentlemen. That's not it at all. I started off positive, then it was a little bit more frustration. But here's a realistic way of looking at it. There's a reason USC's changing their quarterback. There's a reason they've lost a lot of close games. All right, sound familiar? I get it. There's a reason, all right, they're under 500 right now. All All right, USC has a losing record of 4-5. They have an identity crisis. Their quarterback wasn't playing great. Their D-line is light in the britches. If we're going to try to get a run game going, they've only got 2 defensive linemen that are 300 pounds or more. All right, but they're 4-5. And then you look at Wisconsin. Our next 2 opponents have a combined record of 500 winning percentage right now. And they may actually be below 500 because USC's on a bye and Wisconsin plays number 1 Oregon. The next 2 games, very losable, but very winnable if we can get some things righted or figured out just a smidge during the bye week. And nothing would make me happier than winning them. All right. And as always, we play Iowa tough at the end of the year, but we'll talk about that game when we get there. To be clear, I am rooting like hell for Matt Rhule. And if he ever said, hey, Adam, come help us out with this or that in some way, I'd be there in a freaking heartbeat. I want to make that clear. But I tell you what, Matt Rhule did everything he could last offseason, all right, to endear himself to almost everyone in the state of Nebraska. With that being said, you look at some of the recent hires. And Kurt Signetti, in the past year or two, 9-0. Mike Elko, 7-2. Kalen DeBoer, 6-2. Jeff Brom, 16-7. Manny Diaz, 6-3. I apologize. Bear with me again, ladies and gentlemen. Sharon Moore, up in Michigan, 5-4. Jed Fish, 5-4. Luke Fickle, Wisconsin, 12-10. Deion Sanders, 10-10. Matt Rhule, 10-11. Jonathan Smith, up in Michigan State in his first year, 4-5. Hugh Freeze at Auburn's probably getting the most heat, 9-13. Deshaun Foster, all right, now 3-5 with the Bruins. Those are all guys that have been hired in the past year to 2 years, okay? And there are other people who are having much higher winning percentages at some places that, probably have not as many advantages as Nebraska does. All right, Dana Holgorsen is a proven offensive mind. There's young talent on this team. Ladies and gentlemen, there's reason for frustration, without a doubt. All right, there's no reason to attack the fans. Let me be that very clear. I said that the other day on Sunday Night Show. All right, Nebraska fans, they show up. We have not put a product on the field that is conducive to the amount of passion that Nebraska fans put towards the product, towards the program. It's not been equivalent in the program's success back towards them, yet they keep showing up. All right, none but love to the fans. So there's a reason for frustration. There is reason for optimism. Okay, let's see what happens the rest of the year. I did get this message. Shout out, he follows all my shows, and I want to give him a shout out. But here's what he said, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. We got 3 games left this year. Glenn Thomas is not the one to hand over the reins to. Players still got to make the plays. Letting the media decide who coaches at Nebraska is the quickest way to kill a program. Ask Bo. I don't like it either, Adam, but come on. Hey, he's entitled to his opinion, and I'm entitled to mine, ladies and gentlemen. All right, once again, not bashing the program. I love the Husker program. Tough love is tough sometimes, though, unfortunately. Now, the first college football playoff rankings are coming out tonight. So I'm going to give my top 12 teams in the country, my first 4 teams out, and then I'm going to answer a fan question at the end. All right, here's my top 12 teams. This should be the only poll that matters. It's the only poll that matters on this show. It's what I write right here, the AC rankings. All right, number 1, Oregon, undefeated, beat Ohio State. Number 2, Georgia. All right, this is a team that played Alabama, number 1 at one point this year, beat at number 1 Texas, number 3 Ohio State, lost by 1 point down to the last play of the game at number 1 Oregon, just went up into Happy Valley, beat number 2 Penn State on the road. The top 3 were easy, especially when you look at who Oregon beat, who Ohio State and Georgia have played, lost to, and beaten. All right, after that, it was a little bit more challenging. Number 4 Texas, gagged me. Number 5 Miami. How are they still undefeated? Cam Ward. They score like a basketball team and they play defense like one too. Miami's entertaining. I don't know how much longer they're going to stay undefeated. After this, it got muddy. After the top 5 for me, it got muddy. Tennessee at number 6. Number 7, Indiana. You know why? Because I have Penn State at number 8, and here's why I have Indiana ahead. They're being punished for their logo. That's okay. They still haven't played a ton of tough teams yet. We're going to learn a lot more about them when they play Ohio State soon. But I compared them at Penn State. It was either Penn State 7 or Indiana 7 and 8. They were going to be one or the other. Penn State's leading rusher versus Ohio State was a tight end. Their second leading rusher was a quarterback, not even the one that runs good. And then their wide receivers combined, the guys with WR next to their position title, excuse me, combined for 3 catches on Saturday. Indiana plays Penn State. I'm picking Indiana to win. Indiana's number 7, Penn State. Still going to make the college football playoff probably. Number 8. Number 9, BYU, undefeated and under the radar all year. Unless you've watched my Adam Carriker show, I've been talking about them. I don't think they're going to finish undefeated, but I think they win the Big 12 and get in the playoff. Number 10, Alabama. First team on here with 2 losses. They played Georgia, number 1 in the country, all right, at the time they played them, and they played a top 5 Tennessee team. So they played some teams as well. At number 11, I do not have Notre Dame. You know why? Because they lost to a middle-of-the-pack Northern Illinois team at home on their home field. They were outrushed, outgained, and flat-out beat that day. They've beaten 2 ranked teams on the year. Navy, with all due respect, I don't know what to make of you. And A&M has 2 losses. Goodness gracious. There we go. All right, so I got Boise at 11. Their only loss this year's by 3 points on the road to the number 1 team in the country, Oregon. At 12, I have Notre Dame. 13, SMU. First 4 out. 13 is SMU. And guess what? They just might beat Miami in the ACC championship game. I like SMU. Number 14 is Texas A&M. Number 15 is LSU. LSU is ahead of A&M in the AP poll, even though A&M beat LSU. I don't pay attention to the AP poll that much. Number 16 is Army, one of only 2 teams in the country, Indiana, that haven't trailed all season. All right, last question, or my fan question that I got. Adam, why in the world do you have a Commander's helmet and not a Redskins helmet? You didn't play for the Commanders. You played for the Redskins. Well, very simply, that's what they're called now. They're called the Commanders. You don't see people walking around in Brooklyn Dodgers hats anymore. You see them walking around in LA Dodgers hats. Excuse me. Even before they won the World Series. People don't walk around in Houston Oilers hats. They walk around in Houston Texans hats. Although the Houston Oilers actually went to be the Tennessee Titans and the Texans started from the ground up years later. But I digress. All right, now I probably need to get an updated LA Rams helmet. Okay, that's a St. Louis Rams helmet, but at least that's my helmet. The Redskins helmet I have isn't even my actual helmet, okay, so that kind of affects my decision as well. It was a helmet that the equipment guy was kind enough to send me, not this, but the Redskins one I have in my closet. So that kind of affected my decision as well. I hear my questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answer in the comments below. Number 1, will Dana Holgorsen being on staff help impact our offense in a positive direction the rest of the season? Number 2, his evolving role throughout the season. What does that mean, and will he be full-time on staff next year? And number 3, why do you think Matt Rhule won't change the play caller for the rest of this year, or at least for now? Let me know. Until next time, much love. Go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the bug.